Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of High Heels and Lipstick Conversations with your girl, Nemia Carnice, the podcast where we keep it real and celebrate her story, her voice, and her perspective one episode at a time. Join us as we dive into empowering discussions on everything from career aspirations, personal stories of triumph, sex, love, and relationships, health and wellness, personal and spiritual growth, style tips, the balancing act of life, and much more. Whether you're strutting confidently in your favorite heels or embracing the power of a fresh swipe of lipstick, this is the space where your voice matters. So grab your favorite beverage, slip into those heels, and get ready for another conversation that will empower, inspire, and uplift. Let's strut into today's episode. And don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Let's go. What is up? What is up? It is your girl, Nemia Carnice. Nemia Carnice, yes, with the glasses, the red glasses on today. Welcome to another episode of High Heels and Lipstick Conversation with your girl, Nemia Carnice. Listen, we are doing another episode of Her Story, stories about healing, empowerment, and restoration. So we have another special guest on today. And it's going to be an empowering story. So I just had an opportunity to finish up and be a part of, I think a couple of months ago, I don't know how many of you are checking in. I see some folks coming in. As you check in, please let me know that you are here. Put some high heels in the chat, some kissy lips, some lipsticks in the chat, and let me know that you are checking in for today's conversation. So I just had an awesome opportunity to be a part of Win with Black Women Indiana, and give some inspirational thought, because this voting season, this election season is so important, and our voices as Black women are very important during this time. And so I got an opportunity, just actually got off of that call. It's still going on. And so just blessed to be a part of a time when kind of history is being made. And one of the things that I shared in that conversation is that we have an awesome responsibility. We've been placed in a position for such a time as this, right? And so it's just an awesome time to be a sister, right? I love I love my Blackness, love being a sister. And so I know that we just have a lot going on from a political standpoint, a lot of unrest. There's wars in the Middle East. It's just a lot going on, but it's also an awesome time if you look at things from a positive perspective. So listen, I'm just thankful to be alive to witness some of this. So I see some folks checking in on this evening. Please let me know that you are here. Put some kissy lips in the chat, some high heels in the chat, and let me know that you're here on this evening. Listen, if this is your first time checking in, your first time catching a live, your first time you want to know what High Heels and Lipstick Conversation is all about, we are a platform that is dedicated to women. We are a platform that's specifically dedicated to Black women. We don't leave our men out of the conversation. So there will be conversations that are, that men would be interested in being a part. We talk about everything. We talk about relationships. We talk about sex. We have high heels and lipstick conversations of the day. So if you're following me on any of my platforms, you may see a conversation of the day to invoke and engage conversations, but they're all conversations that are significant to us as a community, and especially as a community of women. Okay, we don't frown or fear or some of the heavy conversations, some of the conversations that some people may find a bit controversial. We'll talk about it all. We'll talk about it all. Okay, but it's grown ass conversations, right? Grown ass conversations. And so that being said, I got to take the opportunity to talk about my new book, Words of Wisdom Every Grown Ass Woman Needs to Know. If you have gotten a copy of the book, put some love in the chat, put some hearts in the chat, some kissy lips, some lipsticks in the chat. Listen, I am so proud of this newest project. It's called Lipstick Affirmations. It's a book of affirmations. It's a great read. It's a short read. It is affirmations and wisdom that we can learn, particularly from the book of Proverbs. Okay, so if you are a Bible believing sister, the way that I am a Bible believing sister, I think there are some things that are contained here that you may find useful, interesting, some wisdom that you may gain or glean as you are on your journey and growing. And so I hope that you would support me. I hope that I could garner your support. I'm gonna drop the link. I'm gonna drop the link. You can find me on Amazon. So I'm gonna put the link out there for you who you may be interested, but it's called Lipstick Affirmation Words of Wisdom Every Grown Ass Woman Needs to Know. Okay, you can find it on Amazon. You go to Amazon, you type in my name, Nemia Carnice. It's going to be the first book that comes up, along with my other book that I dropped last year, Seven Lessons for Her, Seven Lessons for Healing, Empowerment, and Restoration. And so these are my two babies, right? These are my two babies. They were a labor of love for me. It's just my way of sharing my voice, my way of impacting my community, my way of just sharing back with my sisters. And so I hope I can get your support. Okay. Okay. All right. So listen, her story. We're gonna bring our guests up. The month of October is a month that is near and dear to my heart. Some of you know my story. Some of you may not know my story. Thank you, Nicole. I always appreciate your encouragement. Nicole says, "I'm proud and happy of you, happy for you." I really appreciate that. And thank you for always blessing me with encouraging words. But some of you know my story, some of you don't. And the reason why the month of October is so near and dear to my heart, because it is a time that we celebrate, or we bring awareness to, not necessarily celebrate, we bring awareness to domestic violence and breast cancer. My grandmother, I have an aunt. Breast cancer is one that runs in my family, in my family, and I, am at higher risk as what we probably would consider being a middle-aged woman. And so I take going to get my mammograms very seriously. I do it every March, just so that I can stay on track of that, and just because of the history that I have in my family. But I also, in my family, have seen and been privy to, and also been a survivor of domestic violence. And so I have shared this story before in my testimonies, my own personal testimony of how my grandmother was stabbed 32 times by her husband, and she survived at the time, back in the day. My grandmother, God rest her soul, no longer with us. But she was married to an abusive man, and he stabbed her 32 times. I've seen mental, emotional abuse within the home with my mother. And so, that being the case, having viewed that quite naturally, as a young adult, I got into my own situation where I experienced, abuse by the hands of a partner, an intimate partner. And so it is very prevalent. So that is not only my story, that is the story for a lot of young women. Um, and it is a story that I am not ashamed of. It is an experience that I can truly say made me into the woman that I am today. I was able to survive it and get past it and heal from it. And so it's my testimony. It's a part of my testimony, but it's also the testimony of so many other women. And so let me just share some data and some facts with you. I'm going to share these really briefly, and then I'm going to bring our guest on to talk about her experience having survived and lived through and gotten on the other side of domestic violence. So here's some data and some facts. And I shared these last week. I'm going to share them again because it's important to share this data and these facts. But in the United States, okay, more than 10 million people are victims of domestic violence each year. This equates to about 20 people being physically abused by an intimate partner every year. Now, last week we said it's not only women, right? There are men who are victimized by domestic violence. Men don't typically speak out, right? And so it's harder, it's not as natural, it's not as common for men to speak out when they have been victimized by violence, but men, they're victimized as well. Okay. So that's 20 people being physically abused by intimate partners every year. 1 in 3 women, 1 in 3 women. That means there's a few of us on the call. If you count off by threes, 1 in 3 of us women and 1 in 4 men have been physically abused by intimate partners in their lifetime. Okay. 1 in 5 women and 1 in 7 men have been psychologically abused, and nearly half of all women and men have experienced some kind of psychological aggression by intimate partner. Okay. So this is very prevalent. It's very prevalent in homes. We know a lot is going on in the entertainment industry right now, child. There's a lot of abuse that happens in the entertainment industry. It's like this little known secret that's happening behind the closed doors. It's happening in our churches. Look, it doesn't have a face or a name or economic status. These women are college educated women that are experiencing domestic abuse, or these women have never finished high school. So it runs the gamut of the spectrum. The abusers are college educated. Sometimes they're professionals. Sometimes you're sitting next to them at work and they go home and there's abuse in the home. It's happening in our high schools. I shared last week that I had an awesome opportunity to speak to some young folks about a year ago, earlier this year, actually. And the amount of abuse and intimate partner violence that's happening within a high school is alarming, right? And this younger generation don't see it as toxic or toxic relationship. And so we're here to break the silence on today. And so I want to bring up my guest, T.E.R. Jackson. She is a young lady that I have had the pleasure of knowing for the last 4 years. She is a part of my glorious and awesome sorority, and I had the awesome opportunity to see and be a part of her becoming a part of my sorority. But she's also a mother. She's a certified coach, and she'll talk a little bit about that. She's a domestic violence advocate, and she's also a doctoral student. And so, even with all that she's gone through, she has an awesome story. And so, I want you guys to give a warm round of applause, a warm welcome. You know how that we welcome people. We put high heels in the chat. We put kissy lips. We put hearts in the chat. Welcome to the stage, Ms. T.E.R. Jackson. Hey there, T.E.R. How are you?
Hey, I'm fine. I'm doing well. Doing well.
Well,
Glad to be here.
thank you for being here on this evening. Tiara has been on this platform before. She has shared her story before, and so much has developed and evolved for you. And we'll get to a little bit of that in just a minute. But since the last time you were here with me or here on the platform, like you have just really just I would just say evolved, and I really want you to share your story. You heard me share some data and some facts. We got some people in the chat that's showing you some love. Nicole is
Thank
showing
you.
you some love. Denise is showing you some love. Miss Jamina is showing you some love on this evening. And so, um, thank you again for being here. I really want to start into your story because this is all about her story. So, October is the month of healing, empowerment, and restoration, thus, her story. And this is kind of your journey from being a survivor um, of domestic violence and just that period of darkness to being an empowered woman and the woman that we see, the woman that I know that you have become today, and a relatively short period of time. Like you have done a lot. You've become an advocate, and we're going to get to all of that shortly. But I really want to start at the beginning of your story, and start with you telling us a little bit about your story and how you met your abuser at the time, because you're no longer in that situation, but you met him. I'm sure he was a charming young man. And tell us a little bit about that background. Like, what was that like in the beginning before the abuse, before it turned into a dark and ugly space for you?
Well, we connected really instantly. We met at a party in college, and it was fun times in the beginning, very, very fun times. It was so fun to where I was used to like partying all the time. I had a group of girlfriends that we always would meet up and go to the local parties, and so that's where I met him. And when I met him, he was all about me, always wanting to call me, always wanting to text, see me. And so at the time, I'm just thinking, oh, he's just really into me. He likes me because he did.
Mhm,
But it was excessive, and I didn't notice the signs that were so excessive initially. So it was me and him literally hanging every day.
mhm,
The times with my girlfriends became more scarce and, here and there. Then it was he didn't really care for this friend or that friend. And it was little things that started to come about. It started being things about what I was wearing. Wasn't a problem in the beginning, but then it
mhm.
was all of a sudden a problem. Even makeup, I love makeup and beauty and all the girly things, and that became a problem. What's that on your eye? And just things like that. But these were all like it was done lightly, so I never took it serious. And I hadn't been exposed to domestic violence in my family. So for me, it was like I was just seeing these signs, but I wasn't taking them for what they were, which were the red flags. So
Yeah.
early on, he cut my name into his hair. And I'm thinking, oh, he liked me. He cut my
Now,
name into his hair.
how long into the relationship was it before he started cutting his name into your hair and then having a problem with your makeup and who you hung around? How long or how far into the relationship did those red flags that you didn't notice or didn't know you didn't even know were red flags? How far into the relationship did that start to happen?
Within a year, I would say between that 9 month mark is when things started to progress. With literally within a year, it just all happened so fast, and so he just kept doing little things. So he ended up getting my name tattooed on him, and then it was um, grabbing me first, throwing a cup at the wall, and then I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? And then it was let me read your text messages. Let me see your emails. So it
Mm,
was like things started to progress. And then it went to, okay, I'm going to grab you by the arm. And when it got to that point, I felt so locked in. I felt so really feared too. A lot of it to me started with that emotional and psychological that led into the physical. But at the
mm,
time, I wasn't noticing what it was. I was just thinking, like, oh, he's really possessive or into me, but in a aggressive way. I didn't realize it how bad it was until I was literally locked in.
yeah,
And
that's a good point that you're making. I want to pause right there because for individuals who have not or women in particular, we're going to keep keep it about women. Again, men get violated as well, but this is a woman centered platform. And so we, by and large, experience domestic violence at a higher rate than men. Men don't typically report out, they don't share that they've been in such a deal. But typically, those individuals who have never experienced this for themselves or don't know that they've been in a domestic violence situation, it always starts out emotional and psychological, right? It never starts out from the unless he just crazy, unless the person or the partner is just, totally left field. It never really starts out physical. It never starts out physical. A woman may not experience the physical aspect for months, years later. And by the time that it rises to the level of physicality, you're so, like you said, you're so locked in, you're so hung up emotionally and psychologically that even from that point, even before it reaches physical, you're walking on eggshells, or you're trying to do things to please that person, or we put the term on it now. We have a term for it. It's called gaslighting, where they make you think you're crazy, or they make you think that you're the crazy one. You go through so much of that, and that's psychological and emotional, that by the time that it gets physical, it's just, it's, you are in that thing. And so a lot of people have a misconception about how physical or domestic violence starts. It always starts at the emotional and the psychological space first, or the phase first. And it's usually a mixture and combination of it all. Is that what you found to be true in your situation?
Yes, very true. And just to add to what you're sharing, the emotional and physical, I mean, the emotional and psychological can just be as worse than the physical because, you know, throughout that, it's a mind thing, but it's damaging. It's killing
Yeah.
your self-esteem in the process. You questioning things that are right or wrong, but you just question things, and it really distorts your mental. So
Yeah.
it takes a toll on you over time, and you don't even see it. Like, I can see pictures of myself from back then and pictures today, and it's like I could see just within me, like it was like my soul was being snatched out of me, and I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah, yeah. In that, I would say the same thing. I have a It's so funny that you say that. I have a state ID from when I was going through my situation, and I look at that sometimes. In the past, I would pull that state ID out from time to time and look, and I can see all the turmoil and the abuse and the depression and everything that I was going through. I can see in that picture at that period. My face was puffy and swollen, not just from the abuse itself, but just from the stress and everything. And it was such a horrible time. And it was written, they say written all over your face. It was written all over my face at the time.
The same here. I was like, I had a look of death on me, and I'm
Yeah.
like, wow. Like, I just look at me today, and I look at me then, and it's just a night and
Yeah.
day experience.
So that's how the conversation started. It started emotional, it started psychological. You said it was a year in before he put his hands on you. What was your reaction? Like that very first time, you've already experienced the emotional, the psychological, but it's a level up once the physical starts to happen. What was your reaction? What was your response that very first time when he put his hands on you? What was that experience?
Well, the very first time he bust my lip, and he hit me on my lip, and I remember just feeling like, oh my God, did this really just happen? And it did. It happened, and I remember him apologizing, and I'm like, wow, we have come to this. Like, this is fear. Are
Mhm.
you allowing this to happen? And so I didn't want to leave right away, but in my heart, I knew it wasn't right to stay in this relationship. But he also had a good way of always apologizing, always saying it won't happen again, and I would just forgive him. And it's unfortunate. Like, looking back, I gave him many opportunities where I could have walked away and I just chose to stay because I was like, I love him. And then shortly after the physical abuse started, I ended up getting pregnant with our son. And so when I got pregnant, I thought, well, maybe when the baby comes, things will be better. And no, it only became even worse. So
Yeah.
it's like you chasing this. I think for me, it's like you're chasing these good times that you used to have,
Mm-hmm.
realizing you'll never get those again. You that was a facade,
Facade.
because it's really a wolves and sheep's clothing that you're dealing
Mhm.
with when you're in those situations, and it's only a matter of time before it's a ticking time bomb. It's only a matter of time before you do something, say something, or another thing happens and they relapse into doing something again. So I think I had this hope even before my son came, but I had this hope even after, that things would get better, things would change, and they just never did. Just never
Yeah.
did.
Did it make it harder because you had so you had a son and a daughter by him? Did it make it harder
Right.
because you had children? And did you and did you hide the abuse from your family? Like, did your family know what you were going through at the time?
I hid it from my friends and my family, but when my son turned 6 months, I finally had the courage to try to leave for the first time. So, I've shared this before. I've gone through a cycle of abuse, which the average survivor takes 7 times to leave
Mhm.
for good. For me, it was 3 attempts. So, when my son was 6 months, I tried to break away and let my family know then. And that's when they first found out. I was away for a year, but then when I came back home. I had went to Michigan for a while, then came back home. And when I came back home, I found a good job here at the time, and so at a local university. And so I was going through these court hearings, and at one of my court hearings, he came to the car because you really like. It's so many things that you think about, but you're not always protected even at those hearings. You're
Mhm.
walking in the parking lot, they can meet you in the parking lot. So
Yep.
at the end
We
of the
saw
hearing,
a
he
case of that
came.
recently, yeah, where a woman lost her life
Yeah.
and her husband killed her in the parking lot of the court where they were going to, dispute the domestic violence situation because he was a violent husband and he ended up killing her after a court hearing. Yeah.
And that's so real. So he actually came to the car and was crying in the window. And I just remember thinking, "Oh, my son needs his father." And shortly after, went right back to him. And so went right back to him. And then not soon after, my daughter and my son are 2 years and 4 months apart. So not long after being through that, getting away, going back, I ended up becoming pregnant again. And at that time, I had my daughter. The
So you were
physical abuse
you were gone
continued.
a whole year. You had left for a whole year. You and your son, you're in a whole different state, came back and got back into a relationship with did you tell your family? Did your friends know? Because by this time, your family and friends knew, once you left the first time, that you were experiencing this toxic relationship that was fueled with violence. Did your family and friends know that you had gone back to him at that time?
My mother did get speculation because it was like soon after I went back, and so she can like see that I was going back, but I didn't. The abuse didn't start like right away, but it did start back shortly
Mm.
after. But it was more of like, wow, I can't believe you going back to that. But no one ever like pulled me out of it. It was just more like, okay,
Mhm.
if that's what she wants to do, that's her thing. Let her do it. And so I went back. And the mistake that I made in going back, and when I think back, and I've shared this before, when I left that first time, I felt strong. Like I felt like, oh, I'm away now. But I
Mhm.
didn't heal. I didn't do any type of therapy, any type of group support. I didn't meet with an agency in the area, try to get any support from resources. So I was just trying to do it on my own, not
Yeah.
realizing that power and control and how deep it is. And really, you're trying to break a trauma bond that I had no idea about. So
Yeah.
it's a lot that goes with going into being in that situation, leaving it, and then trying to stay free.
Yeah.
So, now at Tierra today, I'm more of like, if you can get away, get out and get help and get resources. Don't be afraid, don't be embarrassed, don't be, I didn't think I needed therapy and all of that, but really
Yeah.
I did. And it would have saved me had I did it
Yeah.
after the first time.
Yeah. I always say this, I always share, and I have shared this. I spent some time when I lived in Indianapolis, like in an advocacy role, and I've done some work in the community, and some of the work, and some of the work that I've done, sorority wise. And so it is so much easier to break away from an abuser physically. Okay. It was easy when I was in my situation. It was easy to, at that time I don't think we had block call, but it was easy to move away so he wouldn't know where I was, or change my phone number. It was easy to break away physically. The psychological and emotional breakaway is much harder, and that's the part where you often need therapy, because until you break away from them emotionally and psychologically, your chances of being that woman that averages 7 times on going back to her abuser for whatever reason, and women go back for a lot of different reasons, right? It's not just because she, and excuse my French, it's not because she likes getting her ass kicked. Is there's so many things that are emotional and psychological reasons why a woman would go back. For you, it was you had children. Their father needs, you know, his son. For some women who are married, it's financial reasons. It's he's done so much to isolate that woman from friends and family, and so that's all she has to depend on. For some women, yes, it's fear. In my situation, it was fear. Like, if I don't talk to him, he's gonna continue to show up at my job. I can remember walking out to leaving work one day and walking out to my car, and he was parked next to my car, and he forced me to get in the car with him by gunpoint. Forced me by gunpoint to get in the car with him. Wanted me to go and have dinner with him, and in in haste and fear, we go to this restaurant, and he's talking real greasy and real grimy, and then he starts to physically put his hands on me, right outside of the restaurant, and people are looking out the window, either not wanting to get involved or just don't you know feel what they see. But it's so easy for us, or for people who have not been involved in those situations, to ask, why did she go back, or why didn't you leave? It's easy to say that, but there's so many reasons why women average 7 times going back to their abuser before they finally get away. There's just so many different aspects to it, that it's not just a cut and dry. Why did she leave? Why did she continue to stay in the relationship that I found? Yeah,
Yeah, that's very true.
yeah. So you went back. The abuse started. How soon in going back did the abuse start again? You had your daughter with him. How soon, when from the time that you went back, did the abuse start again? And did it escalate and become much worse from there?
I would say within a month. Within a month, it was back bad, and it's like when I think back, I met a lady when I was free, and I remember her telling me, if you go back, it's gonna be worse. And I'm like, really? But to this day, each time I went back, it became worse and worse and worse, which made that final time, the time that I did break away for good. I knew, I said, you won't be here. The kids won't have a mother,
Yeah,
and you won't be here. So whatever you're trying to protect and hold, it won't be, because it's too intense now. And
yeah,
I didn't see it as bad as it was at that time, but looking back, I'm like, enough is enough. And when and also with here, you'll know when you're tired. When you're
yeah.
tired, you'll be done. And I knew I was tired.
Yeah. What was that last time like? What was the time that time when you was like, the enough is enough. I'm tired. What was that like? Tell us a little bit. What happened? Did you come home and it happened? Were you out? Like, what was that time that you was like, I'm done. This is it. This is enough for me.
Well, it was the final time. I came home. I stopped at Fifth Avenue, got some tacos, came home, thought I was going to enjoy a meal, and I went downstairs to do laundry. And while I was down there, he came down, had went through my phone and was upset, and came down and assaulted me. And while he was doing that, I was blocking myself, trying to fight back as best as I could and protect myself. But I started coughing up blood, and I
Wow.
couldn't understand how I was coughing up blood. So the impact of the force was so strong to where I was like, okay, you're coughing up blood, you're bruised, this is bad. You cannot you won't be here. You cannot endure these types of fights. And then also at that time, my daughter came to the step, and she was about 5 at that time. And I think she saw it, and just seeing that made me feel like, no, this is enough is enough. They had already lived in a home, and I know they would hear things, but to see her have to see it and know that she possibly saw who knows how much, I was like, we can't live like this.
Yeah. So did you often have like bruises and cuts and things that was visible, once he had put your hands on you? Did you have to hide those bruises? Like what was that like?
So here I have like a gash that you can barely see, but it was from a time when he threw a remote at me, but the remote had like a piece off, so it like cut in my face. So that
Mhm.
was the time where like I covered it up with makeup as best as I could and still went to work. I've had bust lips before, but what I would do is sometimes I would take off, wouldn't go to work if it was depending on how bad it was. But the
Mhm.
final time, the bruising was mainly like under my shirt area. So it was like across my chest, on my arms, and then behind my ear. So you really couldn't see it. And so I didn't have, the black eyes, but I would have like the minor cuts and if you will, and bruising.
Yeah. Did you ever used to, because some women get caught up in this cycle. It's just a part of the cycle, right? It's a cycle of abuse. But did you ever take up for him or cover up for him? Did you ever go through any of that? Like lie for him on his behalf?
I didn't I took up for him. And when I said took up for him, like when I did have a case or something going on, I would drop it, get an order of protection and drop it. And so
Mm,
for me, that was not following through or
yeah,
because why am I getting this order? So when I would leave him, I would do that, get an order of protection and then drop it. So once it's dropped, I'm not protected if something happens. And so unless I file a police report and all of that and press charges, but because I was still going back, I never did the police report and press charges until I left the final time.
yeah, yeah. And was it love? Were you just in love? Did you think that this is just what relationships go through? Like after so long,
I
you said
became
you knew.
numb.
Yeah, you
I
became numb.
became numb to it, and I really like thought he would change. I was like, it won't be like this forever. One day he would change, and I just didn't see it that he wouldn't change. I just didn't accept it for no, this is who he is here. He's not going to change. And also his history and background played a part in a lot of what I
Mhm.
went through, I know this isn't every person that comes through the foster system, but that happens,
Yeah,
the statistics are high on that. Children who are exposed to that system, they can end up, becoming abusers. And then on top of that, he wouldn't. That was a part of his history, family history, his
yeah,
father against his mother. So it was things that I didn't know about until I was deep into this relationship. And
yeah,
so just looking back, I should have really done my research and history on who I was dating. And so, I'm always like now, I'm free, but I'm
yeah,
very cautious and careful. You have to
yeah,
be cautious and careful and mindful of who you're getting involved with and really know their history, know their relationships with their parents, know their relationships with their siblings and family and friends, and really getting to know them for who they really are and not
yeah,
who they appear to be. Because we
yeah,
didn't really, I met him in college. We didn't really have do this in-depth research on each other like we should have done because a
yeah,
lot would have came out had I really known who he was.
yeah. Oftentimes, we don't talk about this enough when we talk about domestic violence, but you get into these relationships where you connect and you don't see the red flags. And you said it in the beginning, and it was true for my situation. It's so true for so many other women that a lot of times you get into these relationships and it goes from 0 to 10 very quick, right? And so that, and I didn't know it at the time, but that's a major red flag. So you get into a relationship with a person and they want to move quick, right? Um, they're ready to, you only known them a month and they ready to marry you. You only known them a few weeks and they're ready to call you their soulmate, and they're calling all the time, right? Like my abuser, he used to call 20, 25 times to my job. And in my mind, my young mind, a woman that didn't have wisdom, didn't understand the cycle of abuse, even though I had seen it in my family and my, and had that history in my own family. In my young mind, I just thought, oh, he really loved me. He liked me. Or I got to go, or he want to spend all his time and his energy around me, and that's how we think.
Mm-hmm.
um but it's really them overwhelming you with love, and you get caught up. And especially if you're a young woman who maybe you had self-esteem issues, or whatever it is, whatever the case, you just get caught up. And that's a major red flag when they want to move really quickly in the process, in the relationship. So I like that you said you really got to take your time to get to know and to understand who you're connecting yourself with. And it's so important for our young ladies to understand that as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you came to your breaking point, you got out of the relationship, you had enough. Did you tap onto any resources when you finally got out of the relationship and you said that's enough, you're coughing up blood? um your daughter has viewed this, and I'm sure that was, as a mother, that's very scary. That's not something that you would want for your daughter to see. What resources, what people came to your aid? How did you get yourself out of that situation where you decided, I'm never going back? How did you empower yourself to never go back? What was that journey of getting out of the relationship and never going back like?
It was so this time I knew I said you if you leave, you have to do a lot of things different than you than you've tried to do in the past. So immediately, I went straight to the clinic in the hospital and I got examined. I filed a police report, secured an order of protection. I went to my family. My parents were there. They've always been there. Every time I would leave, they were always supportive. But I went to my parents. I also this time knew I needed to secure an attorney. I said, I'm going to have to find an attorney and make sure because we have the kids. So I knew that that was going to be a big thing. So right away, within the first week, I secured a family law attorney who specialized in domestic violence. And so
Mhm.
that was important for me. And it was also important for me to start that therapy right away. So I think I started that within like the same 2 weeks as far
Yeah,
as like going to therapy. I made sure I did that, and everything went so fast, like filing for legal process and all of that. So I couldn't really start be in a support group right away. But therapy was number one for me, and not only for me, for the children.
yeah,
I knew they had been exposed to trauma. My son at that time was 8, my daughter was 5. So you talking from 0 to 8. This is your foundation has been built around seeing violence in the home. So I wanted them to at least have an opportunity to have someone to talk to as well. And so I made sure I set that up right away. And then I would say within a year, I ended up, so I left in 2019. So I've been free now. It'll be 6 years, March
good.
18th of
Yeah.
2024.
Mhm.
But I became a Delta. And when, I got into my sorority, I had an opportunity to break my silence publicly on the
Yeah.
red table talk that we did. So that gave me a voice on a
Yes.
platform. And then I made sure I'm on Facebook support group. I'm in a private support group for survivors. And
Mhm.
then doing that, I was able to find an organization that's based out of Florida called Stand Up Survivor, and that organization had a healing retreat for survivors.
Mhm.
And the prerequisite to that, you had to be out the relationship, I think, a year. And you go to this weekend retreat where you really do the soul work and the inner work with other survivors on overcoming, what you had been through. And so that helped me a lot, participating in the retreat. And then I went to a domestic violence conference by the same organization that they hosted in Orlando. And I was able to go there, get resources and support. And so I made sure this time that I was going to be active on the healing journey. That way I didn't relapse. I didn't go back. Um, to this day, I'm still active in my Facebook support group. So I'm constantly interacting with other women, other survivors. And while I'm empowering them, I'm empowering myself.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's led to, what I'm doing now, which is recently made a decision to become a Christian certified women's life coach through a program by called Coach Academy. And I started that in the spring and I finished this past August.
Yeah.
And that is something that I'm working on the business model for it, but I would like to launch a life coaching program for survivors and women who've overcome adversities, and just showing them how to thrive and stay encouraged on their healing journeys, because
Yeah.
that was something that I had to navigate on my own. But now that I've gone through that on my own, I want to be able to help somebody else. And it's a part of my way of wanting to give back as well.
Yeah. What impact I know you the impact that you endured, and I'm so glad that you were able to get out of that situation. And again, I have seen your growth. I've seen your evolution from the time that you were on Red Table Talk with me, and what you have evolved to today. And I'm so very proud of you.
Thank you.
Um, but what was that? What was it like the healing journey for your children? Like, were they impacted? Did you see things as a result of having the children view some of those things and experience some of those things in the home? And what was the healing journey like for them, or how has it been for them?
Well, I say we all are still healing, but definitely see, the anger and frustration come through them. I've seen that. I've seen the anxiety, the worry. And they're doing good. Life didn't stop for them. Even during the relationship, I always kept them they never bounced around schools. I kept them in their same schools from um, daycare to now middle school for my son, and my daughter's still in elementary. So I kept their like personal social life pretty stable. I kept them in sports and activities. They're in mentorship programs,
Mhm.
but they did. I can see the residue of being in a abusive relationship and being in it as long as I was, how it does affect the kids. Because, like I say, the different it's beyond just sibling rivalry. Sometimes it's like,
Right.
we don't talk to women like that, or we don't talk to girls like that.
Yeah.
We don't hit your brother, things like that. So I'm working on that with them, and they're still working through those things as well. They have a support specialist. They both did do counseling and therapy, but as with counseling and therapy, you start and you stop as needed. But I always keep them enrolled at school with a support specialist. So making sure that they have an outlet outside of family, outside of me, that they can have, and to someone to talk to on top of that mentorship piece.
Yeah. That's so awesome. And so necessary. The kids having a support specialist, you redirecting behaviors in the home, because they seen that. And we said earlier on in our conversation that a lot of times those who have witnessed abuse become the abusers themselves. You said your ex, he saw abuse, and so he became an abuser. There was the same situation in my case. My ex saw abuse in the home. He saw his mother be abused. His father was an abuser. And so, quite naturally, he probably assumed that those are the things that happen in relationships. I know I haven't been in seen it, thought that this is just what happens when you're in love. This is just what happens. You fight, you argue, you know you physically fight, and the next day everything is okay, but it's not okay. And so I'm so glad that you got the support and the resources that you needed, even for your kids, to help them to cope and to help them to overcome. Whatever happened to him, the ex? Are you still in contact? Is it still a situation that you're battling out? You know,
There's
what
still there's still an ongoing legal battle in process, but the co-parenting piece is not healthy with an abuser. It's just not healthy. So I still have to interact as the courts, allow, but even with that, things are still shaky grounds. And so it's still a process, but it's not easy, to co-parent with the abuser. It's just not easy. And it's not only not easy for me, it's more so for the children because they're in the middle of the mess, if you will.
Yeah,
And my thing is safety. I understand, that's their father, but my thing is safety for us all. And so that's the big thing, you deal with a lot of continuation of hearings, violation of orders, and these are the things that go on, it's a long battle after leaving a abusive relationship, especially with children. And
yeah,
so I won't go into the details, but it's not easy. It is
yeah,
definitely not easy.
yeah, yeah. If you have questions for T-Era, thoughts that you want to share, you yourself have experienced domestic violence or seen domestic violence, we would love for you to share your thoughts. Or if you have questions, feel free to put those in the chat. Thank you for all those who have checked in, but we definitely want you to have an opportunity to ask questions or to share your thoughts as well. You talked a little bit about, some of the things that you're involved in now, and how life has kind of changed for you. You're on the other side, that you're still healing and still just kind of going through the process. So what message, now that you're on the other side, you've had what you've experienced, you were successful now at getting away, um what message would you share to other young women who might be in a similar situation or find themselves in a similar situation, or perhaps they're in a situation and they don't quite know, is this, he raises little voice, just what messages would you share to other women or young women in particular?
Well, one, you don't have to suffer in silence. There is help. Don't feel shame. Don't feel like it's a burden or it's not big enough or anything. Any thoughts that you have that you may think that what others may think or feel, let that go. Help is out there. We have a national hotline here in
Mhm.
Indiana. We have local resources. We have Haven House in Hammond. We have Sojourner Truth House in Gary. You have St. Jude and Crown Point. We have our Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So there's help all around and resources all around. You don't even have to worry about having a plan because these resources have the proper trained individuals who can help you with the safety plan or help you with planning an exit. Or once you do decide to exit, you don't have to worry about what will me and the kids do because there are programs already in place that will help you. So just know that you don't have to suffer in silence. And also, it's not easy breaking away. It might be scary breaking away, but just know you're doing it for your better good. You deserve life, you deserve healthy love, you deserve a happy
Mhm.
life, a peaceful life, a stress-free life. And being in a home or in a situation that's abusive physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, it's not worth it. It is not worth it. And if you have children, they deserve more. And
Yeah,
so just recognizing that early on and realizing that life is beautiful and it doesn't have to be dark, I think is key. And there's help. So we have the hotline.org. You can go on there 24/7 and chat with someone.
yeah,
You can call 1-800-799-7233 and get someone on the line to help. Resources are all around. And even I want to share something to family and friends. I know it's frustrating at times watching somebody go through domestic abuse. Don't
Hmm.
feel like you have to do the rescue effort.
Right.
These places that we have, they it's not always safe to first of all go in and try to rescue someone. So there's a lot of risk involved with that, and we've seen that in recent news where people have gone in and become, gotten shot and killed just based off trying to help. So you
Yeah.
do want to make sure you are thinking about your safety as well. So guiding someone to the resource is helpful,
Yeah.
and you've done enough doing that, being able to just share a resource. But also, if you're in a situation, you're questioning it, going back to the question, loveisrespect.org has a quiz that you can take, and you just answer some questions. And when you answer those questions, it will tell you whether or not you are experiencing domestic violence in your relationship. And
Yeah.
that's loveisrespect.org. And if you want to reach out to me personally, if you know someone, or if it's yourself, I can be reached at Tierra, Tierra at standupsurvivor.org. I am a global ambassador for the state of Indiana for this organization that's based out of Florida. I'll be more than happy to help guide you to resources that can help you. And if you have a family member that you want to have reach out to me, feel free to let them know that I'm always here to help. Um, I feel like it is my God given assignment and duty to help the next woman, because there are survivors who are not here because
Yeah.
they didn't speak up or they weren't able to, and they're gone. And so I just think about families who didn't know, and their daughter, their sister, their friend was going through
Yeah.
something. And I've been given three chances, which I feel like is three chances too many, but I'm thankful for them
Yeah.
because I'm here today, and now I'm helping.
Yeah.
Um, Healing was priority for me first, but the advocacy is what I really, really want to help women with, and that's what I'm focused on today.
Yeah. I mean, you have a testimony, and it is not, your experience is not lost, right? Like
Right.
you went through what you went through, you experienced with your experience, but God can even use that for you to reach back and help other women. And you're doing just that with your advocacy work and being an ambassador for the state of Indiana, and sharing your testimony, and serving on domestic abuse committees, and lending yourself to the community. So that's very commendable. Yeah.
Thank you.
You've been out of it for 6 years now. Um, do you still have triggers? It's been 6 years, but do you still have triggers?
So the triggers that I have is really in court or with the
Mhm.
court process, when things are lingering and lingering. But day to day, no triggers, is more so frustrations, I call them,
Yeah.
just with how things are done. I think that there's not enough information out there about when you do break free, and then how long the path can truly be for a survivor.
Yeah.
We're talking years of
Yeah.
ongoing litigation,
Yeah.
thousands of dollars of fees, and
Yeah.
everybody's not mentally prepared for that. And hearing after hearing, that takes a toll on you, on your mental
Yeah.
health. So one of the things that is helping me on my journey is prioritizing self-care.
Yeah.
you know Getting I do acupuncture now. I've been doing acupuncture since the spring. That
Yeah.
has really helped me just be calm and sleep well at night. But on top of that, journaling, I'm really big on journaling. I have about four different journals. I have a gratitude journal, a self-care journal, a prayer journal, a regular journal. So I'm real big on reflecting on my day or reflecting on different moments. And so that kind of keeps me going. I love listening to motivational podcasts. I
Yeah.
love listening to sermons through my workday. I listen to a lot of lo-fi music. Um, and stress relief music and things
Mhm.
like that. Just doing things for yourself that helps you stay calm, because I'm not going to say it's easy when you leave, because it's not. You making choices. For me, my choice was safety.
Yeah.
So police reports have been a big thing in my freedom now. And then
Mhm.
also when reporting violations as they arise, pressing charges as necessary. Like these are all things that you'll have to do. And then you have to stand up in court. You have to speak up about things, and that's not easy.
Yeah,
But you can do it, you can do it.
yeah,
And my main thing is I don't want there to be another Tiara with this person after me, and there has been. So the
yeah,
abuse did not stop with me, and it's
yeah, and it
continued.
doesn't.
And so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't want someone else to be gone because I gave up. So I
yeah,
keep going with my fight, and I keep going because, like I say, I deserve justice and I deserve peace.
yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned that. The abuser, you're typically not the only one. He continued it on. My abuser continued it on. Even after me. There is there. I'll say this. It's such a dynamic situation to be in, and you have to stand strong, but you also have to know, and you said this, that you deserve more, and that's not what love is, right? And so a lot of us, I was young, fresh in my 20s when I had my experience. Sometimes you don't know what love is, or you think that what they're displaying is love, but what they're really displaying little by little is control. And a lot of times what triggers them is the fact that they're losing control. So it's something, whether you didn't say the right thing, you didn't do the right thing, you didn't respond in a way that they wanted you to respond. You didn't answer your phone, or a lot of times it's mind manipulation. I can remember in my own situation that there were a lot of mind games. Like he mentally messed with me. Even when and the gaslighting, even when there was no reason for us to argue, he would often evoke a reason for argument. And so it's such a layered dynamic. And one of the, and I alluded to this earlier, one of the worst things that another woman can ever say to another woman is, why did you stay? A lot of times she don't know why she stayed. And there's a lot of factors in that. But what she does need to understand is that that's not love. That abuse is not love, that she is worthy and of more, and that there is another side to toxic, volatile relationships. And like you said, it's not easy. It's not going to always be easy to break away, but you got to know that you deserve more. If you have children, you don't want your children to come back and see and come back at you and say, but you what look what you allowed. There's so many complications to that, especially when you have children by the man. I didn't have children by my abuser. I was able to walk away when I finally did walk away, and not still be attached to him. I had to change my address. I had to move, and he not know where I was, but I was able to walk away and not have any attachment. That's not the same for so many women stories. And there's so many women that try endlessly to leave, and there's always this drawback, whether it's children, whether it's finances, whether it's loneliness, being alone, or just that this is what they think is norm. It's not normal. It's not healthy, right?
No.
And so Paige says, continue to stay strong. You have done an awesome job of being an advocate. Again, I've seen you evolve. What are your hopes and aspirations and dreams for the future? And then we'll kind of end there.
Well, I'm hopeful to have, when I finish school, my goal is to have a nonprofit agency that's resource based for survivors.
Mhm.
That is like the main thing that I'm passionate about, because my journey has shown me, while there are resources, I've seen the loopholes and the different things that I do feel like could be better to support survivors. Because one thing you have to understand is, especially when you have children with a abuser, the laws still say that that's their father, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just escaped this man, and I have to co-parent with this man, and even in that, that's not healthy because
Mm-hmm.
it's not safe for me. But I
Yeah.
have to do it because the law says he abused you, not the children.
Right.
And so it's just a process and a thing of just so many loopholes, in my opinion, that things could be better for us. And so I just want to help women. And so I want to have an agency when I finish school, and then the life coaching program is something that I see myself thriving with. The goal is to have a 90-day coaching program for women, and then to also have like a monthly coaching group coaching component of that, supporting women. A future book is something that I'm really, aspiring for.
Yeah.
And thank you, Paige. Paige is actually in the support group. We met a couple years ago, and she has a group about thriving. So it's just,
Yeah.
I've come across some amazing women on this healing
Yeah.
journey. We've never met in person, but we know each other virtually. So thank you, Paige, for being here today. And I see myself still being in my field of work in higher ed, but progressing in that, and also really working in my passion on the side,
Yeah.
which is helping women thrive, helping mothers, helping survivors. Um, there's so much that can be done, and I just want to be a part of doing that. So Nemia, I really thank you for the platform. I thank you for the opportunity. You gave me the first light to even want to share my story, and break my silence publicly. And that's the thing too. I think that more survivors need to, it's okay to break your silence when you're ready, because when you do it, people say, oh, me too, I didn't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had people reach out to me
Mm-hmm.
um in Facebook, for not only for help, but just to say it was me too. And you would never, we all look different, right? And so
Yeah.
you just never know what someone is going through. And that's another thing for me. I went to work with the abuse going on.
Yeah.
People didn't even know. I remember when when they found out at my job at the time, my coworker said, "You have the strongest poker face I've ever seen," because I never brought it to work. I
Yeah.
acted like nothing was going on, because work was also peace for me. I
Yes.
knew it was the one time of the one time frame of the day that wasn't going to be anything, drama
Right.
related that I
Right.
was dealing with at home. And so outside of my kids, work was a peaceful place for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, and that's true for so many women. They, it's the women that we sit next to every day that go home and they're faced with abuse. And so I think a lot of women share that same poker face, right? Their families don't know, their friends don't know, their close people around them don't know, until they decide to leave that situation, and they break their silence. So thank you, Tierra, for breaking your silence. Paige is sharing the Facebook book group, Women Confidently Thriving. And yes, she is definitely thriving. You are thriving. You are a true her story, a story of healing, empowerment, and restoration. I thank you for sharing your story. I want those who have checked in, who may view this, to really understand the cycle of abuse. There's so much, if we had more time and we could dig in the conversation more, there's so much that we can share about women who experience domestic violence. Is so layered. There's so many signs, and we just got to continue to educate people. So continue educating people on the signs. Continue breaking your silence, and being a voice and in empowering women. Thank you, Tierra, for being here on today. I want to again encourage those who want to know more, to do your research. Do your research. We share Love is Respect .org, and let me put that link back up again. Love is respect.org. There's a lot of education centered around what healthy relationships are, what dating and relationships look like. There's warning signs of abuse, what you can do if you see a person be abused. Again, Tiara already mentioned that sometimes it's not always safe for you to physically intervene, but there are resources. And the other thing that I want to share that, and it's such a phenomenon in domestic abuse, because a woman often goes back so many times. The people around her, family members, friends, they tend to get frustrated and mad with the woman. Like, why does she keep going back and don't come to me and tell me, and that's a human response that some people have when they see their friend or loved one or family members or sister or aunt or mother or whatever. It's a human response when they see that and they're witnessing someone that they love be hurt. But it's very important to educate yourself on the psychological and mental aspect of abuse and why a woman stays, how dangerous it can be, like the danger of leaving that situation escalates at the time that that woman decides to leave the situation. It's really the behaviors that those who have not experienced it or been an eyewitness to it, they really need to educate themselves on it. Those that have experienced it, we know, right? We know why a
Mhm.
woman stays. We know how dangerous it could be for a woman to leave. We know that the abuser will pull you in and reel you in and woo you with flowers and gifts and cards and candies, and things may be good for a month and 2 months and 3 months, and then you're back in that cycle, and here they are putting their, we know all about those things, but there are so many people who don't, who need to educate themselves, so that they understand the dynamics of domestic violence as well. So thank you again for sharing your story. There are resources available that H.E.R shared. She shared earlier about the free 24/7 confidential hotline, the National Domestic Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. If you call that number, or if you've seen someone in a domestic violence situation, or you want to get resources or want to learn more about resources, you can call that hotline. There's a lot that's out there on, if you just research and Google about resources. If you need resources in Indiana, there's a lot that is now available to people that find themselves in this situation, and just knowing that love does not abuse us. There's a lot of things that love is. Love is patient, love is kind, it keeps no record of wrong. It's all of these things, but love is not abuse. So, thank you, Tiara, for being a part of the conversation on this evening. Thank you for helping me to bring awareness in this month of October for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Y'all show some love in the chat if you're still here and you're still checking in. We're nearing the end of our conversation, but y'all show Tiara some love by putting some
Thank
high
you.
heels, some lipsticks in the chat, and just show her some love. Hang out with for me just a minute as I wrap up the conversation backstage, Tiara.
Okay, and I
But
have a quick thing I want to share.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Another thing, the power and control reel. Google that. That is research. I can't remember the year it was done, but that
Yeah,
is research, and it really breaks down domestic violence and that power and control, that manipulation, and that cycle that you go through. That's one of the best graphics that you can really reference to just kind of get better understanding. Because I wasn't aware of it, and that was something that I really understood once I left the
yeah,
relationship.
yeah. I'm sharing here. You probably see my screen where I have shared my screen in my search, but it really, I think you're right. This gives like the best explanation. It tells you about the different aspects of violence. It could be physical, it could be sexual, it could be emotional, it can be psychological, but it really is all about power and control. It is the abuser wanting to assert themselves, wanting to assert control over the abusee. And when they're losing that control, it triggers them. It makes them want to act out. It makes them want to be violent because they don't want to lose control. And it's a cycle, right? That's the reason why it's a wheel, it's a cycle. And so you may go through the honeymoon phase and then find yourself right back in that cycle where it escalates again. So there is a lot of resources, there's a lot of education. We have no reason not to be educated on the aspects and the dynamics of domestic violence today. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to put you backstage. I'm going to wrap up this conversation. Thank you for being here. Thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for checking in. I really appreciate you for checking in and hanging with me. Again, we're going to continue this month of October with sharing her story. We're going to come back to you at the end of the month, the 28th to be exact, to share another powerful story of a woman who has survived and healed and is empowered and restored. We're going to share with you a story of a woman who survived breast cancer. So please check in with me again on Monday. Same time, same bat channel, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, where we do another Her Story for the month of October. Paige says, nice conversation, ladies. Have a blessed evening. Thank you for checking in on this evening. Again, don't forget my new project. You can find me on Amazon. You go to Amazon.com, type in my name, Nemia Carnice, and both of these books are going to come up. 7 Lessons for Her, which is all about healing, empowerment, and restoration. All about what the month of October is about, really, because we're sharing her stories. And then my latest project, Lipstick Affirmation, Words of Wisdom, that every grown ass woman needs to know. Look, there is a lot here. And I'm just going to share some final thoughts from this book. I'm not going to share because you got to get it, right? You got to get it in order for you to know what's all in the book. But it's affirmations. Again, it's a short read. It's a good read, but it's some powerfully packed affirmations and some wisdoms that we should know. And so one of the wisdoms that I share, one of the affirmations that I share with the ladies in this book, this is just one of many affirmations. It says, I know my worth and I add tax. And it just talks about the importance of knowing your worth. And it says, and I'm just going to read just an excerpt. It says, whether you are a mother, a wife, whether you're single, content, dating, whatever, no matter what the situation, knowing that you are precious in every way as a woman is important. Women that possess strength, wisdom, and kindness are more precious than any material possession. Furthermore, women who understand their worth and are confident, they are aware of their strengths and ability, and they don't need anyone else to make her feel good about herself. Those are powerful women. As women, we have a high standard of being trustworthy, capable, and dedicated. No, we'll never be perfect. It's completely impossible to live up to asinine and completely unrealistic expectations. God allows room for us for error and for growth. But above all, it is important to know our worth. Know your worth and add tax. And that comes from Lipstick Affirmation, Words of Wisdom. Every grown ass woman needs to know. Thank y'all for checking in. Until we see you again, I'll be back again Monday, October 28th with another Her Story. I appreciate y'all. Smooches, thank you for being here on this evening. I appreciate all of your support. Until we see each other again, smooches. Thank you for joining She is Nemia tonight for another edition of High Heels and Lipstick Conversations. We hope you have enjoyed the dialogue. If you like what you've heard tonight, please press the like or love button. The share button is free too, y'all. You can follow She is Nemia on all social media platforms. And if you are feeling generous and would like to support High Heels and Lipstick Conversations, hit a sister up on her Cash App. She is Nemia. I appreciate the love, y'all. Please know the views and opinions expressed tonight are those of She is Nemia alone and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entity she represents. Also, music was provided by Upbeat Creators at upbeat.io. Smooches. Until next time, y'all.